I mentioned AI earlier. It's something, Mike, I did a deep dive on the last year, and I've had some of the biggest voices on AI on this show, including a guy named Mo Gaudet, who used to work for Google X, and he left because even 5 years ago, back in 2019, the advances they were making in AI terrified him so much that he left the company and wrote a book on happiness, and then later wrote a book called Scary Smart that talks about AI. I spoke to Peter Diamandis. I've spoken to Max Tegmark at MIT, who did the Future of Life Institute that asked for the pause. This is growing geometrically. I think most of the world has snoozed since the ChatGPT moment. But what do you see happening behind the scenes that makes this such a more effective weapon than the AI you talked about that was working 4 years ago to, look at the algos and things like that? How much more effective has it gotten, and how scary has it become?
Yeah, it's, and that's a great point that you mentioned, and because I always like to start this discussion by saying AI is not some future hypothetical threat in the censorship space. It's here. It's been here. You are living in the AI censorship era. Before 2016, everything was whack-a-mole. Everything was reactive. Something had to go viral and be reported before you even had people in position to be able to take it down or throttle it. Now everything is pre-censored because all of the keywords are mapped, all the networks are mapped, and you have tens of thousands of people whose full-time job through government grants at the National Science Foundation or at DARPA or through some State Department pass-through grant like a USAID grant are funded to spend their entire careers mapping the language of people in different so-called misinformation communities, misinformation about climate change, misinformation about immigration, misinformation about the Ukraine war, misinformation about mail-in ballots, or misinformation about public health or vaccines. There's full-time censorship industries in all of these where it combines the computer science, it combines the sort of political thought leaders who sort of pick what wants to be censored, the social science linguistic mappers who create these, complex code books of evolving, constantly updated language and trending topics and slang and dictions and prefixes and suffixes and hashtags. And then you've got the computer scientists who actually translate that into the natural language processing, machine learning, AI, sort of algos and machine readable scripts made out of those linguistic lexicons. But that was the great game changer after the 2016 election here in the US. Those techniques, which were initially developed in order to help the Pentagon and CIA stop ISIS from popularizing its message on Facebook and Twitter, because their language was network mapped and censored using these tools. That came to be used on Trump supporters and on Brexit supporters and on, COVID critics or vaccine critics. And now, it's basically anything that's a sensitive government policy. You have hundreds of people, at least in any given field, who are sitting in universities or at NGOs who earn their livelihood mapping that language so that computer scientists can turn that into a censorship algorithm. But where that's going now is, it's very analogous to the rise of chess computers. And this is actually how I got into this, was because I've been a lifelong sort of chess, avid player, and I sort of came of age during the time that chess computers overtook humans in that Gary Kasparov Deep Blue match. But chess computers had been around since something like the late 70s. People started working on the concept of, hey, computer power can actually be used to analyze all the different theoretical moves. And, it took a multi-decade process for chess computers to be refined to the point where no, human could come close. I mean, today, one of the recent world champions, Magnus Carlsen, would talk about how he doesn't even play against chess computers. Everyone uses them for analysis and training, but he doesn't even play against them because it's so disheartening. It kills your instincts. It creates a feeling of hopelessness because no human today has a snowball's chance in hell at even coming close to competing against a chess computer. That ship sailed immediately once Gary Kasparov lost. But before that, you had a bunch of years where chess computers were beating club players. They couldn't beat masters. They're being masters, but they couldn't beat international masters. Being internationals, they couldn't beat grandmasters. And, there was this evolutionary process, and the whole way people were saying, well, they're good, but they're not going to be that good. Well, they're really good, but they're not going to be able to beat the best in the world. Then suddenly they beat the best in the world. And it's like, whoa, there's no turning back from this. This is like a human trying to outrun, a 737 or something. It's a different class. You can't even think that you're going to be. And it's the same thing with the power of AI censorship as it is being refined. When I sort of talk about weapons of mass deletion, what I'm really telling there is the story of the new Manhattan Project. We dropped 2 bombs over Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, in 1945. But that wasn't the end of the story of the development of nuclear weapons. We spent another, decade and a half, 2 decades, refining the power of, weapons of mass destruction, with atom bombs and neutron, with hydrogen bombs, and we made them bigger and bigger and bigger and badder and more destructive and more deadly than ever. And then the Soviet Union developed theirs, and we were taking out entire habitats, entire island chains with the development that went into the expansion of the Manhattan Project even after the war. And what we're currently witnessing right now in the AI censorship space is that period sort of after World War II, you can argue. The first test case, they dropped these atom bombs on the 2020 election. They dropped them on COVID-19. Now those 2 events have sort of receded. And we're now in this sort of diplomatic negotiation age where those wars are over, but we're now in this sort of great Cold War. They got away with it uncontested because nobody knew what they were doing at the time. Well, very, very, very small people knew what they were doing. It went politically unchallenged. There was no oversight in Congress. There was nobody in the private sector who said, hey, this is weird. Even to talk about it was like a conspiracy theory. You couldn't even say that there was censorship on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook was to put you in a category of someone who had to prove that it was really there. You had to pull all the receipts, and every new person you had to give the same speech over again. Now that is more or less uncontested, at least in high-level political circles. And it's just a question of whether it's good or bad. But that has created diplomatic vulnerabilities in their ability to scale this out in the open. So a lot of it is now being developed, deep within the bowels of these DARPA-funded NGOs or these National Science Foundation, Pentagon intermediated programs like this Track F program, and these cybersecurity programs that sort of launder the words security into it to make it look like they're stopping sort of foreign threats of speech online. But it's moving into this kind of darker pool to develop it.
So Jim Rickards has just recorded a video that's not available to anyone in the public, and he's going to be talking about how this upcoming recession is going to be fast, it's going to be bloody, it's going to be nasty. But at the same time, he's going to show you how you can position yourself to profit from all of this chaos. Now, we've made this video only available to our viewers. Go to londonreal.tv/Jim. Watch that immediately. I can't say enough good things about Jim Rickards. He understands the global economic system better than any guest I've ever had on London Real. His predictions are almost uncannily true, and you can learn how to profit from his vision, from his expertise, and his understanding of economics. So go to londonreal.tv/Jim or click the link below. It's an excellent, excellent look on what's going to happen in the future and how you can position yourself to profit from that. Jim is one of the best in the business, one of my favorite guests on London Real, and he's very, very good at predicting the future and showing us all to profit from it. So click the link, and I hope you enjoy. I'm looking for partners, collaborators, colleagues who want to join forces with me around the globe and create real value, generational wealth, and financial freedom for everyone else around the world. Get involved in the cryptocurrency markets, get involved in the NFT markets. This is your moment. Life all comes down to a few moments. Don't let this pass. Now it's not too late. Next year's going to be too late. Ultimately, this is about freedom. That's the way I see it. This is about giving power back to the people and enabling billions of people worldwide to use the financial markets to improve their lives and those of their friends and their families and their communities. Honestly, I think it's a violation of human rights not to allow people basic access to financial services. Because right now people are being kept in the dark, they're being robbed of education, and it's a travesty. And so I'm looking for people that want to join me and be a part of this solution. And that all happens inside the DeFi Academy. The gains my students are making are absolutely amazing. Double, triple digit gains in the first month alone. That's amazing. This will change your life. Now is the time to get involved. I'm going to tell you exactly how my students in my academy made money in the last 30 days. I'm talking about real trading results. And let me just whet your appetite a little bit. Let me hit you with some numbers. I'm talking Brendan from New Zealand is up 68.77% on the month. Steve from Europe up 83%. Albert in Singapore up 169.9% on one single trade. I got Susan up 153% on her call options alone, also rocking 139% returns and 442% returns as well on individual trades. These are people that are changing their financial future in the last 30 days, but it's based on trading discipline.
I've graduated over 500 students from inside my academy from over 54 countries around the world. It's amazing. When it comes to crypto, DeFi, and blockchain, we love this space. We truly believe it's the future. This is down to our core. It's authentic to what we're doing, and everybody can tell through the camera because you can't make this stuff up.
If you're watching me now, wherever you are, I implore you, take 60 seconds right now and join my academy. Apply today. Now you've got a chance. Life all comes down to a few moments. What are you going to do? What's the choice that you're going to make?